Okay, 3 lines of defense. This should be a review from ANP2. We have first line, second line, and third line of defense. Okay, first line is also known as innate immunity. Second line is inflammation. The inflammatory response. Now keep in mind this is generally speaking, a healthy form of inflammation. The goal is just to wall off and protect. Okay, if you get hurt and an inflammatory response happens, also part of the inflammatory response promotes the healing mechanisms from coming in as well. Okay, so this is a good form of inflammation. Weird to say, but it is. Contrasted with chronic inflammation, which is harmful. Okay, that's the kind of stuff that leads to heart disease and dementia and so on. Okay, third line of defense is acquired immunity. This is where your body learns how to fight off viruses and pathogens throughout your lifetime. So, for example, when you're first born, you clearly have not been exposed to everything because you're brand new. You're a newborn. So newborns and toddlers and kids tend to get sick a lot, but what's happening is they're building an immune system. And another name for acquired is adaptive immunity, which means they learn how to adapt in this environment. You're literally growing an immune system by your immune system being challenged. And that continues for forever. Okay. All right, first line, the innate immunity is where those are the things that you're born with. So you're born with skin, which is part of your immune system, the ability to sneeze, purge, vomit. You have white blood cells. So it's just stuff you're born with, okay? Innate immunity. Okay, our body's interaction with the environment. So we have built-in lysosomes. That's going to help fight off the bad guys, right? Pathogens and bacteria. Sebaceous glands and secretions help. There's a natural flora that is in the gut and vagina that can help with protecting those areas. Okay, cilia naturally will move things away from the lung field. So cilia found in the trachea moves things away from the lung field. You don't want microorganisms and particles and all that getting into the lungs. So the mucus, which is innate, you're just born with that, and the cilia, innate, you're born with that, will move those byproducts and opportunistic organisms and all that away from the lung field. Now, if something does get into the lung field, then you have the dust cells, which are a type of white blood cell to help kill and ward off the bad guys. Okay, meaning pathogens and microorganisms. Okay, your skin is a natural barrier, so that's part of first line. Acid in the stomach is, so when we swallow things, for example, when the cilia and the trachea move things up into the throat, inevitably you're going to swallow that. And then your stomach acid will kill anything that would get into the stomach from the trachea there. Okay, things like sanitation has helped tremendously with overall health. In fact, there was an article I read not too long ago that gives credit to infrastructure and sanitation and plumbing and all that as the number one cause of lowering diseases in people is sanitation. Water quality is important. Contaminated water obviously will hurt people, and crowded living conditions. Okay, just chances for spreading things go up. Okay, weather and air quality and seasons, those are part of the environment that can have an effect on people, from seasonal depression because not enough sun to extreme hot, extreme cold conditions. Okay, then there's the microbes, and they're part of our environment. Uh, so you have weather and seasons. That's part of our environment. Microbes, part of the environment, and then the host. Okay, which a human is a good host for things. So these bacteria and viruses are living and they need something to thrive in. So a human is a good place for that to take place. So as a result, we have ways to try to resist that. Okay. And now keep in mind, there are limitations to matter. Even though the human body is pretty good at fighting off microorganisms, there are species out there that can hurt a human and kill them. Okay, now that's a complicated formula because you have to also throw in age, pre-existing conditions, and so on. But nevertheless, these opportunistic organisms can be dangerous enough where it can actually kill a person. Okay, the host, or the human, can express fever, which is letting you know you're fighting something. There are mechanical barriers to help fight things. We have built-in phagocytes, which are your Pac-Mans designed to eat the bad guys. But things like stress and chronic illness will suppress the immune system, making you more susceptible to injury. Okay, age does has a factor. Your extremes, such as premature infants and the elderly, especially the really old, are more susceptible to illness. And nutrition and hygiene is important. So diet and lifestyle on the healthy end puts you ahead of the curve, but you can also have unhealthy diet and lifestyle choices, which will put you behind the curve, making you more susceptible to illness. Okay, pathogens with the virulence, which means the potential for harm. Okay, so there's either a high virulence or a low virulence. So if it's a high virulence, it's more harmful. If it's a low virulence, then it's less harmful. Okay, microorganisms must adhere itself for success. So an example, some bacteria have a pili, which is a hair-like structure. This is also known as a fimbriae. So this will help attach itself to the host cell. The pili increases the virulence. An example is E. coli and streptococcus. Okay, so you have your bacteria, and there's these little pili that hang out off of the bacteria, so makes it easier to attach itself to the host cell. Okay, endotoxins are toxins within the cell wall. So endo means on the inside, so inside of the cell. Okay, and LPS, which stands for lipopolysaccharide. I broke down the prefix, suffix, and root word there for you. So lipopolysaccharides. These are pyrogenic, which means they can cause a fever. Okay, these are found in the outer membrane. Of the gram-negative bacteria. This membrane is designed to try and protect the bacteria. It's like a coat of armor. Okay, endotoxins are highly immunogenic and attracts immune cells to the infected area. All right, endotoxins activate inflammation, and that means it'll bring in interleukins. So, for example, you have your IL-1 all the way through IL-35, so interleukin 1, and there's interleukin 2, interleukin 3, and so on. So they, for short, they call it IL. Cytokines, macrophages, monocytes, and B cells. There will be some examples that inflammation will recruit these in. Okay, endotoxins are heat stable the toxins are liberated upon cell death of the bacteria. Okay, unfortunately, when an endotoxin is released by the immune destruction of the bacteria, the resulting immune activation can have a profound effect on the host, like septic shock. Okay, so as an analogy here, so picture you have this throw rug from the house, okay, and you're going to take that throw rug outside and you're going to take a broom. Okay, you're going to take a broom and you're going to whack the throw rug. Now, if you did that, you're going to obviously disperse all the dust and all the stuff that has accumulated endo, so inside of this thing, all these toxins that have gone inside of this throw rug. So if you hit it, you'll disperse. All that stuff kind of just jumps off of the throw rug. Now you've got all these endotoxins that are free floating around. Okay. And it can be too much for your immune system to come. For some people, it can be too much for the body to handle. Okay, so septic shock, intravascular coagulation. Okay, these are abnormal. Blood clots. And respiratory failure. Okay, can be some examples that can happen to people when endotoxins are released. Okay, exotoxins. All right, these are heat, liable, which means unstable and easily altered. So these are a toxin secreted by bacteria and can hurt the host. All right, so here's an example of that. So we have the bacteria. And an example would be tetany, botulism, diphtheria, well, botulism is by botulinum, the bacteria. Okay, so the bacteria will release exotoxins. Okay, so what happens is you'll have a cell. Okay, so I'm going to draw some pictures here. And on the cell, there's a receptor, or some receptors. Or excuse me, these are the antibodies. Okay, we'll draw the receptors in a second. Okay, so these yellow ones are exotoxin receptors. Okay, so the blue are the antibodies and the yellow is the exotoxin receptors. All right, so this represents a somatic cell, which is really any human cell. Okay, they have antibodies, okay, represented by the Y-shaped protein, and their function is to help prevent infection. All right, so you have one of two options. All right, there's one of two options. Okay, we need a second option here, so there we go. All right, one of two options, and option one, when the bacteria, so let's go back up here, releases its exotoxins, so let's go back to the exotoxins. If the exotoxins bind to the exotoxin receptor, the cell dies. Okay, if the exotoxins bind to the antibodies, the cell lives. Okay, bacteria can resist drugs. Okay, so this is also known as antimicrobial resistance. Okay, this is where bacteria can change over time and can resist medications. Sometimes called superbugs. Okay, bacteria gain this by transmitting their resistant genes to other bacteria. Okay, this fission or bacterial reproduction is what allows for this. All right, transmission of infection. So you have the host, like a human, animal, okay, soil, and it releases the pathogen through something like nasal oral, mucus. Okay, then transmit like an animal bite, which would be direct transmission. Nasal oral droplets, land. Okay, that would be droplet transmission. Or another one is vertical transmission. An example is mom to baby, HIV. Okay, then it gets into the victim via an open wound or nasal oral. And the infection depends on susceptibility. Okay, susceptibility are things like pre-existing conditions, age, diet, and lifestyle, is the immune system suppressed. Okay, so some people have a suppressed immune system, whether it's from poor diet and lifestyle and stress and things like that, or because they're on a medication that suppresses the immune system. Okay, so some people are ahead of the curve with their ability to fight off infections, and some people are behind the curve. Okay, decreasing the transmission of microorganisms. So you can do things like simply destroy them, so eradicating mosquitoes, for example, garbage, removal, sewage treatment. So that gets into sanitation. Blocking the microorganisms because of masking or gloves, some sort of PPE, personal protection equipment. Okay, simply blocking it through sterile techniques, hand washing, properly cooking food, storage of food, and then reducing the chances of illness by diet and lifestyle things. So there's optimal rest, optimal nutrition, and the theory behind vaccinations is you get a little bit of whatever it is, and that's supposed to provoke an immune response so that you can resist. That actually is considered artificial passive immunity, because those are typically lab created. There's also natural immunity. So, for example, you could get the chickenpox vaccine, so there's your artificial immunity, or you could get chickenpox from another kid, for example, right? So that'd be more natural immunity. But the idea is to build a resistance against whatever it is. Okay, there are many different types of microorganisms. Okay, such as bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites. Okay, bacteria are single-celled. Okay, they have a rigid wall, no internal organelles, and there are countless species out there. Most are useful, some are harmful. All right, so here's a reminder of bacteria shapes. Reminder because by now you all have taken micro and would have looked at this in detail. So just a quick review. So bacteria shapes, you have your sphere shape, so they call that cocci, staphylococci, for example. If it's shaped like a rod, that's bacilli. Okay. Clostridium, salmonella, be some examples. And if it's spiral, an example of that would be Helicobacter pylori. Okay, so those are some of the different shapes. Okay, then you get into staining. So there's gram positive that stains that purple-ish color. There's gram negative that stains a pink color. And so bacteria shape, so I would refer you back to this diagram. Okay, bacteria based on nutrition or nutritional requirements are either aerobic or anaerobic. Okay, aerobic means it needs oxygen for growth. Anaerobic does not need oxygen for growth. Okay, an example of an aerobic is Pseudomonas arugensis. So all right, so these can cause blood infections. They are gram negative. Okay, they can also cause lung infections like pneumonia. Okay, and the blood infection is a risk after surgery. All right, anaerobic, which does not need oxygen. Okay, an example is Clostridium. Okay, that is gram positive. Clostridium can cause botulism. Or tetanus. Okay, bacteria and staining. All right, so we looked at that earlier. You have the gram positive appears dark purple, gram negative appears pink, and acid fast resists staining. Okay, viruses have a protein shell called a capsid. And they have a core with genetic material. And that genetic material is either DNA or RNA. So as a result, viruses are classified as an RNA virus or a DNA virus. Okay, an example of RNA would be influenza, the rhinovirus, hepatitis C, and an example of DNA would be herpes zoster. Okay, and viruses are either double strand or single strand. Okay, some viruses are retro virus because they can convert their RNA into DNA. So an example of that would be HIV. This is also because they have an enzyme called reverse transcriptase. Anytime you end with ase, so I broke down the suffix there, lets you know it's an enzyme. So reverse transcriptase. Okay, here's some pictures of the different kind of viruses we have out there. So this is what HIV virus looks like. Influenza, the adenovirus. Okay, helical, polyhedral, spherical, okay, and a complex virus. Okay, there's the capsid. Okay, it's made of a protein. And inside there's your genome stuff, so the nucleic acids, the genetic material of the virus. The outer lipid layer, those are typically for protection. Okay, fungi. Are eukaryotic microorganisms. Okay, they are thick, tough cell walls, and they have organelles. Okay, some fungi examples would be mold, thrush, yeast, and ringworm. Okay, now ringworm is deceiving because it makes it sound like it's an actual worm, but it's in the fungi family. Okay, this can happen, or it's usually expressed on the skin. It's highly contagious. People can get it from like gym mats, gymnastic mats, stuff like that, skin to skin contact. Okay, so it is a fungal infection, but it is possible for parasites to cause it, or not parasites, but mold that behaves or is a mold-like parasite. Okay, they live on cells. They can live on the cells of the outer skin. There are some pretty good over-the-counter medications that can help. If not, they're certainly prescription. Okay, mycosis is the fancy name for a fungal infection. Candida is normal flora in the body, okay, the human body, but can overgrow. Okay, so there's an anti-candida diet that can be done. You can test for this. It's a blood test to see if a person has or where their candida levels are at. Okay, a suppressed immune system can cause fungi to grow because you can lose your resistance. Okay, parasites protozoa, which means single celled. An example is malaria. Okay, then you have roundworms. All right, so signs and symptoms would be abdominal pain, nausea, worms, and stool. Okay, and there's flatworms. Like a tapeworm. Okay, signs and symptoms, GI pain, weight loss, and diarrhea. Okay, much of the parasites are transmitted through contaminated food and water. Okay, here's some other parasites. There's scabies, and what it can present like on the skin.